everybody. All right, good morning. My name is Captain Brad Koch of the Public Affairs Office. Appreciate you joining us today. Today we're going to be announcing a new initiative focused on reducing violent crime, particularly crimes that involve guns. Major Alan Rutledge, is overseeing this important initiative, and he is here to tell you more about that, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But first, I'd like to announce some developments that have occurred overnight in reference to the sexual assaults that occurred on Forest Brook Drive that we discussed on Monday. Lieutenant Muriel Hughes with the Sexual Assault Unit is here this morning to provide that update. This time I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Hughes. Lieutenant.
Good morning. I wanted to update the Forest Brook cases, one that occurred on Monday, the 12th, and the other one that occurred on August the 2nd. We were able to identify and arrest a 15-year-old juvenile in those cases due to the hard work of the Sexual Assault Unit, due to their due diligence and their persistence. We were able to identify that individual in those two cases.
Do you have any questions?
We're seeing a lot of teenagers involved in particularly disturbing crimes this year. A couple have been arrested for sexual assault cases, some homicide cases. 15 years old in this case. I mean, how disturbing is that to you as someone that works these crimes day in and day out?
Well, it's very disturbing because you have a 15-year-old and you want to know what they're thinking and what their mindset is to the point to where they do something that horrific when it comes to that type of crime. You know, you would hope that there's some hope in the future that we could be able to reach these teens to try to show them or teach them that there's other ways of doing things outside of just being criminal-minded.
Are you still looking into the other two cases to see if there's a connection with this most recent arrest?
We're still looking at the other two cases. I'm not going to say, I can't say whether they're related to him, but at this time we don't actually think so, but we're still going to be looking into those two cases as well, because that means that we have another individual that's out there preying on individuals as well and doing the exact same thing as going into someone's house and maybe making some type of inappropriate comments or inappropriate touching, and we don't want that to escalate. So again, on those two cases, we still ask the public that if they have any information to please let us know.
Does that mean that the patrols in that area will also be beefed up while you continue to look into those other two cases as you mentioned?
I want to say that Freedom is doing their best to make sure that they are doing as many patrols in that area as they possibly can, and identifying anybody in those areas that's out, especially during that time of night.
Does this suspect have any connection to the other teenagers who were arrested for sexual assault? Because I know the previous two were co-defendants in a previous case.
At this time, they're not connected. He's not connected to any other juvenile cases that we're dealing with or any other juvenile co-defendants.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hughes. That is some fantastic news. We will be sending out a press release shortly detailing a little bit more information about the updates in that case. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Major Alan Rutledge, A-L-L-A-N, Rutledge, R-U-T-L-E-D-G-E, and as I mentioned, he is spearheading this important initiative in terms of violent crime. Major Rutledge.
Good morning. Again, my name is Alan Rutledge, Major with CMPD, and just want to talk to you briefly about a new initiative that we're putting in place to attack gun violence. What we're doing is we're assigning a group of officers, detectives, and civilian employees to include crime analysts, bringing that group together to focus on violent gun crime. They're going to work together strategically, develop information on people involved in this gun violence, and look at focusing their efforts on those individuals specifically. Right now, what we've done is we've dedicated 10 personnel to this particular group. And again, They represent a myriad of areas to include our vice unit, our gang unit, our firearms unit, intelligence, patrol, and our crime analysis units. Really, the goal of the unit is to investigate these individuals and try to determine exactly what type of offenses they're involved in addition to those gun-related offenses, and take action on those. They're going to work closely with a number of other units within the police department, to include patrol divisions and those focused mission teams. This isn't anything to replace any of the great work that's being done in terms of our investigative units. It is merely here to complement our ongoing initiatives to address gun violence. In simple terms, what we're going to do is we're focusing on people that are pulling triggers in this community. Why take this step? Well, it's obvious. We're still experiencing increases in violent crime. Although we've done some fantastic work. Thus far this year, we've made more than 10,000 arrests. That's up 4% from last year. We've seized more than 1,200 guns. Again, up 10% from this time last year. But we continue to see an increase and a spike in violent gun-related crime. We've seen a 16% increase in gun violence thus far. Shooting in the occupied properties, we've seen a 28% increase. We've talked about this time and time again. We're seeing young people settling disputes, very minor disputes, with guns, and that is certainly troubling to us. We're experiencing a cultural change, and so as a department, we're having to adjust the way that we do business and change with that. In many cases, we have folks that are shooting at houses and shooting at individuals simply because they were disrespected on social media, or a girlfriend was spoken to, or a boyfriend was spoken to by another person. And again, these are relatively minor disputes that start out relatively minor, but end, unfortunately, in gun violence. Gone are the days of settling your disputes on the schoolyard with a fist fight, and at the end of that fight, it's over. So those days are gone. And again, we're having to adjust with that. Perhaps one of the most troubling things that we're seeing is that oftentimes the intended targets are not the only victims of these shootings. We have grandmothers, we have brothers, we have sisters, we have neighbors, all of which are, again, unintended targets of these shootings. However, they are victimized. Innocent people being affected by these shooting incidents. Just this morning, a 16-year-old boy was arrested for murder that started as a shooting in an occupied dwelling and turned into a homicide. 16-year-old Javon Goolsby was killed back in June when shots were fired into his residence here in North Charlotte. Again, by all accounts, he was not the intended target of this shooting. However, he sustained a fatal gunshot wound. Now we have 16-year-old Cameron Terrell Holden, who is charged with his murder, along with 8 counts of shooting into occupied property. That leaves 2 families just devastated. And for what? Again, a minor disagreement. Earlier this month, on the 5th, a 15-year-old was shot in the leg on Palm Breeze Lane. The shooting occurred shortly after a dispute, a relatively minor dispute. The 15-year-old female was, we believe, the target of the shooting. However, we also had 4 residences that were shot into during this single incident. So innocent victims that live in close proximity to where the shooting occurred were victims of this shooting. Again, minding their own business inside their homes, doing what they do. Also back in April, 27-year-old Kendall Crank was fatally shot at the intersection of North Tryon and 28th as she simply drove down the street as two groups shot at one another. Perhaps one of the more troubling things that we're experiencing in looking at these cases is there's not oftentimes a lot of cooperation from the victims in these cases, so that certainly creates a struggle for us in terms of the investigation. We would certainly encourage anyone in the community to reach out and contact Crime Stoppers with any information that they may have regarding any type of crime, whether it be as serious as a homicide or as minor as a larceny. Again, we can't emphasize enough that we need the community's help when it comes to solving crimes. This is not just a police problem, it's a community problem. And so we've got to work together to solve those problems. So again, please, please, please contact Crime Stoppers with any and all information that you believe is relevant. I'll take some questions.
Where are these young people getting these guns?
I talked about more than 1,200 guns being recovered. What we're finding is that most of those guns are being possessed illegally, okay? Whether they're stolen firearms or whether they're being possessed by people underage. So many of these weapons are being taken from vehicles to where people are leaving these weapons in vehicles, and folks are breaking into cars and stealing the weapons.
Have any of these been obtained because their parents might have a gun hidden somewhere and they get their hands on that?
I don't know the answer to that. I would imagine that there may be some cases, but however, what I can tell you is that is not the majority of these. The majority of these incidents that we're talking about, people come in contact with these weapons illegally.
Is any part of this initiative to go into the schools with getting back in session and talking to young people?
Well, we already have programs in place that does that. And so it is a comprehensive initiative. We're attacking it at all angles because we recognize the seriousness of it. And we are truly very, very concerned, and it was brought up earlier, at the age of many of the offenders. We're certainly disturbed by that.
Are any hotspots developing, or is it just distribution citywide?
This is a distribution citywide. This initiative is citywide, and it is going to be, let's say, more person-focused than location-focused.
These illegal guns that you guys are getting, could you give an estimate of how many are being obtained by teenagers?
I don't have that information in front of me at the time. I'm sure we could probably get that to you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Major Rutledge mentioned several cases, which we will send out an update, including those numbers. Again, anybody with information is urged to contact Crime Stoppers at 704-334-1600. This time, I would like to call Public Affairs Manager Rob Tefano up real quick.
And it's real quick. And, we work closely, all of us together, most of us together weekly. A lot of you are familiar with the team that we have here in our communications office. Like a family, dysfunctional as it may be at times. And bittersweet to announce today that we're losing one of our more valuable members. All of them are valuable, but she's been really, she's hit the ground running since she's come aboard a couple of years back. Melissa Treadway's been with the organization for a little bit better than 12 years. Recovering journalist from the Charlotte Observer. She is going to be heading off to greener pastures. I'm not going to run too far and get ahead of the coverage. I know that a lot of you work and have worked closely with Melissa. Had a really good way of working with the media and the community. Big loss for our unit, a big gain for another department in the city. So just wanted to put that out there and thank Melissa for her service to the team and to what she's done for you guys in the media and the community at large. Appreciate that.
Thank you, all. We have any questions?
Captain Koch, the DA just released their decision to not charge Officer Wendy Curl in the Danbury Franklin shooting. I don't know if Chief Putney is around at all to talk on that. Chief?
I haven't seen him.
Chief Putney is here.
Morning.
Obviously, you know that this was a shooting that rocks our community, not that any of these get recapped, but when you heard that decision as the Chief of Police here, what were your thoughts as a pretty lengthy report as well. What were your thoughts when you saw
Yes,
the
I'm
decision?
still tearing through the report, still reading it. I do know his decision not to charge. I'm just going to say this. I respect the fact that it was a very thorough investigation by our detectives. They did a very good job. It's tough on them because they are investigating one of their own. They did a fantastic, thorough job, very objective investigation, turned over to the district attorney to do his work, to review, to make sure all I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and there's a thorough assessment of whether or not it is outside the boundaries of law. The determination was that it is not. It was actually within the parameters of law. Now we have an internal investigation that will continue, and we'll figure out all the other missing pieces that we have to do within our policies to make sure no policies are violated, and we move forward. Our hearts go out to the families. You got to think, at least 2 families have been changed dramatically forever. So out of respect and deference to that, that's about all I can tell you. I will entertain any questions you might have related to that, but that's about as detailed as I can be.
I
Yes,
know
sir.
it's limited. Where does CMPD stand in terms of the internal investigation and moving forward with this?
Yes, right now we can proceed to the final piece of that. We have a couple of other pieces just to tie up and then set a board hearing. Hopefully that'll be within the next few weeks.
And then is Officer Pearl still on leave?
Currently, she is as of today, but right now we have to assess what that position is going to be as we get ready to set the board for the internal.
Are you bracing for any pushback on this at all from the community? I know there's pushback initially, and you guys trying to combat that with the community conversations. Are you expecting anything like that since the decision's officially been announced?
That would be a question for the district attorney. His decision's been made. My job is to, right now, continue to fight crime, especially those violent crime that we've been talking about for the last few weeks, and make sure our people are motivated to do that work. And whatever happens, we will be ready. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all very much.
We had a police report of an 11-year-old whose webcam was hacked. Just do you have any message to parents as children are going back to school about, watching over their computers and things like that?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, all parents, we move in the age of technology and more things like doorbell cameras as well as webcams within the house. They got to make sure that you keep those secure and follow the instructions of the companies to help make sure that you keep that information private. Okay? Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.